one of the key things I've learned, even looking back now, is it's not just a commercial change, moving from SMB to mid-market enterprise. It's a cultural change as well, because the whole company is used to getting 50,000 plus leads, a lot more than that, through the door. And that's how the company operates, right? From a product to, obviously marketing is doing what it's doing, driving that, sales, CS, everything's driven around that.
Welcome to the Show Me the Data podcast by LeadSet, where every week we get marketing and sales leaders from fast-growing B2B tech companies to share specific tactics they use to drive revenue for their business. The best part, they share the exact metrics and data points behind each of their tactics. I'm your host, Tukan, the co-founder and CEO of LeadSet. See you there. Hello, everyone. My guest today is Punit Godgari. Puneeth's the Director of Growth at Reonomy. Welcome to the show, Puneeth.
Thanks for having me here.
Very good. So can you give us a quick high-level overview, Puneeth, of what Reonomy does?
Sure. So Reonomy is a CRE tech data company. In very plain and simple words, we provide the data for investors, brokers, and a bunch of other segments of owners. The way we like to call it is we have a knowledge graph of people, properties, and companies. And we're in the middle of that, and we provide all of the data around that, the segments that I mentioned, for them to either prospect, build better relationships, discover new opportunities, and of course, grow their business.
Got it. Cool. So you guys are primarily focusing on the property, real estate, like that market.
That's right. So we're a commercial real estate platform. So think of it, especially for the sales and marketing leaders out there, the Zoom Info, but we're kind of like a Zoom Info, but for the CRE space. So we have all of the data for, off people, off properties, commercial real estate, mostly, and companies that, companies or segments like brokers and investors and wealth managers and lenders, roofers, service providers can take advantage of.
Got it. Very cool. Okay. So first question for you. I noticed you joined last year in March. I guess that's when COVID was just starting and everything.
Correct.
So this is a question that we ask all our guests. What did your first 90 days look like as a director of growth?
So I joined the first day of remote working. So that was that was a bit of a bummer, because I'd met, the few people I'd met.
Yeah.
At the interview stage, I obviously spoke a lot to the founder and CEO at the time. Rich, great set of conversations, really excited about the product, about the people, amazing group of people who I met. And then I was already pull my sleeve up, put my best shirt on, but it was unfortunately not to be, because that was the first day of, remote working, but that's okay. You live and learn. And so it was mostly this, what we're doing now with my team, and getting to know my team, getting to know, people who I would want to build relationships with, sales, product, engineering, customer success, and RevOps, and of course all the other teams that I wanted to go. So that was sort of new, because it never been done before. That's not how I'd met people. So that was my first 90 days. A lot of it was relationship building in a new environment. Yeah. But from a sort of growth perspective, where we landed was, when I joined the company, I had a very simple tasks. It's not simple, but straightforward is probably a better word. Yeah. We were really heavily focused on SMBs, and what we wanted to do as a company was move from SMBs and move upmarket, move from audience to small, mid-market, and enterprise. Okay. A bunch of reasons, commercial as well as product. From a business point of view, SMBs, it's a volatile industry. So either you go the route of Atlassian or HubSpot, where you really become an SMB self-serve model with a lot of automation, or you, like most growing SaaS companies, you want to move up market. And especially in COVID, it's a volatile sort of niche, if you want, because SMBs, unfortunately, the economy, they're very dependent on the economy. And we saw that, and we realized that even before COVID. So COVID didn't sort of drive this. It was pre that as well. And I was hired for that, because that's sort of what I've been doing. So we wanted to move from SMB to mid-market and enterprise. And what that means is not just say, okay, we've got SMB, let's keep going with SMB. And now let's add in mid-market and enterprise. We want to not go after SMB. We want to only go after mid-market and enterprise. And a lot of that was also done with the product. We wanted to, we had a product, we have a product that builds, we had a product that builds value for larger organizations. We knew it. We started to make inroads. JP Morgan Chase was a customer. We talk about them a lot, and a few other large sort of institutions, banks, lenders, brokers as well, huge, great brands in the CRE space. And so we had that. It was just we weren't sort of focused on it, and we really needed to. Otherwise, for us, it could have been coming to the edge of a cliff if we had kept going on this high growth SMB model because of a number of reasons. And and of course we can dive into that later. But that was my prerogative. First 90 days, assess it. How do you move from a very heavy inbound, more than 50,000 leads a year model, to a much smaller group of people, mid-market enterprise, and the strategy around that.
Got it. So now, just quickly, previously when you guys were targeting SME, was it like a self-serve or was it still like a sales-driven process?
Inbound sales-driven process.
Got it. So people would come inbound, they had to do a demo.
That's it. It was, and only inbound. And marketing drove what, 95% plus revenue for the business. Wow. Because of the fact that it was all inbound, because of the fact that it was SMB, and SMB generally is mostly inbound. You start an outbound motion when you move up market, but I'll talk about that later.
Totally makes sense. So now so you've been hired to drive your, the marketing and sales effort from not just marketing, also product on the side, is targeting SME to mid-market to enterprise. What are some of the big changes that you implement? Because that's a big fundamental shift, not only just from multiple things. So I'd love to know that. Like, what are the first big changes?
Absolutely. And I want to hop on that. It's a fundamental shift. Yeah. One of the things that we realized, so this is what I've been doing in the past as well. A couple of previous companies, it so happened, somehow it's followed me in my last 7 or 8 years. Whenever I join a company, 6 months later, we decide to move up market. And so it so happens that I've kind of learned how to do that. Obviously, every company has its own story and the way you do things, and the market is different and the product is different. And so it's not like you can take a playbook and put it into the next company. But one of the key things I've learned, even looking back now, is it's not just a commercial change, moving from SMB to mid-market enterprise. It's a cultural change as well, because the whole company is used to getting 50,000 plus leads, a lot more than that, through the door. And that's how the company operates, right? From a product to, obviously marketing is doing what it's doing, driving that, sales, CS, everything's driven around that. And so, we have a new CEO, veteran. He's great. And his main focus, and he keeps constantly telling us, is to be thoughtful around things and just, because to get good quality, you've got to be thoughtful. And that thoughtfulness is all about culture. And one line that he keeps repeating, I think it's a Peter Drucker quote, or maybe Peter Drucker, or I forget who it is, but culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so that's just such a huge part of this whole thing when you want to move from SMB to mid-market enterprise. It's not only like, let's get a target account set and let's go after them. It's easier said than done. And put a couple of tools in there and then you're done. It's a cultural mind shift. And we now are, I'd say, about 13th or 14th month heavily into this shift. And you're starting to see the cultural change that's needed from a sales point of view, from a marketing point of view, from a product point of view.
So from a growth perspective, then, Puneeth, you come in, your sales team is expecting 4,000 or 5,000 leads a month. All of a sudden, that's gone. What do you do? Like, how do you go about starting this?
So one of the first few things we did was look at the ops right around it. So, well, there's two things we do. Look at operations. So how what's the flow like? What can we do to really measure? Because if you can't measure, you can't improve, right? And to be able to measure and see how can we do that, and what's the process needed to be able to measure that whole process. So that's one, and I can dive into that. The second thing was focus, right? So it's about focus, so not just target accounts, but also we were going after about, I think it was about 11 segments in the market. Okay, that's because our product is useful and provides value to many segments, a disparate variety of segments. Tax assessors, brokers, lenders, investors, movers, service providers, all these people. And so what we did was we looked at all that and said, okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to look at these and see let's pick 4 or 5. We didn't know what, but let's pick 4 or 5 of these segments that are really good for us in terms of the metrics that they provide us. So what's the usage? What's the churn? How are they coming? What's the cap? For these segments. Okay. Spent the whole of last summer doing that, actually. Reduced the number of segments from about 10, 11 to 4. Okay. So now we have a core, what we call core group of segments that we can go after, and we can really focus and we call them core segments. And the rest we call non-core.
Got it. So that's your, ICP fit customer group that you're going after.
Right. That's right.
So you decide your four core, verticals or segments. How big is the addressable market? Like, how many companies are we talking here?
Well, the addressable market is huge. So, that's got, in terms of revenue, it's more than $1.5 billion. So, and in terms of size wise, it's huge. But really that doesn't matter because that market includes a lot of SMBs. And as I told you earlier, we're
cutting out the SMEs.
So actually, what we're doing is we want to go after target accounts. So within those segments, now we've got 11 to 4.
Sure. Even
within those, we want to go after mid-market enterprise. And so what we did was we picked a target account group. It was around between 3,000 and 4,000 accounts.
And you were defining that by revenue or size of companies or locations or stuff like that?
A lot of it for us is, it is revenue. We also do a lot, one of the things I keep mentioning is investors and lenders.
Yeah.
And so it's their capital market as well. And what they, what that entire sort of investment sort of market is for them. But, obviously for brokers and for others, it's around revenue. So it was a combination of revenue, company size, and the investment they have in the market as well.
Okay, perfect. So you have 4,000 companies that you have defined that you want to go after. Right. What do you do next? How do you target them? Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to say was also, each industry is different, and I've done this before. We picked a group of accounts, going after sales and marketing leaders. Somehow, the information available for sales and marketing leaders is much better on companies like a ZoomInfo, where you collect data and you take data to be able to understand for them. Ours is a niche industry, and we are very disparate in our segments, as I mentioned. So what we had to do was manually. So the marketing team, literally, we split out amongst the 10 of us. We split out the way, so each segment. So we split it out by about 10 sub-segments, and we manually collected a bunch of, so let's say 100, 150, 200 accounts by looking them up on the internet. And we spent a lot of, almost a couple of weeks. We put aside everything else, and manually went and looked up each company or looked up lists, let's say or top brokers in Chicago, top lenders in Houston, and that sort of thing, and so pick those. So that's the way we collected our target accounts, because of the fact that we didn't really we didn't depend on companies like ZoomInfo to be able to collect and buy that data, because it's not readily available. So I just so that was an interesting way to. I've never done that before, but at least you know who you're collecting and you know the data around it.
Okay, so now you've been very thoughtful as your CEO mentioned in coming up with the target account list.
Yeah.
What's the motion there? Go to market motion against these accounts after you have that list.
So that's great. There's 2 ways you can do this. One, let's go full speed ahead.
Yeah.
Let's get an ABM tool. Let's build a ton of content, push it out, thoughtful content, push it out and try to get engagement and then push them down the funnel. That's kind of what ABM really is, right? The other one is something really, we again, goes back to the being thoughtful, quality ARR, and which is what, Bill keeps talking about. And basically, let's get alignment first. And, I talked about the cultural aspect of this whole thing. That's what this is. So let's fix the culture. Let's fix alignment between marketing, sales, CS, product, RevOps. Okay. Let's get all of these people in a room to talk about, this is the group of accounts that we're going after. Get everyone to agree on that. Going after 3,000 accounts could be done. That's not what we wanted to do. So what are the sub-segments within the 3,000 accounts that we want to go after in the next quarter and the quarter after that? We picked 2 sub-segments, all of us together. And we said, okay, now marketing from the top of the funnel is going to do events, content, white papers, like just campaigns, right? A ton of things at the top of the funnel for this particular segment. And here's how the process and the ops will work. So work with RevOps, or the sales ops. We're lucky, we're Series D, we're at a considerable stage of growth. We have the resources. It's just what path do we want to take and how do we want to take it is where we sort of are working on. And so we spent the last, I'd say about 8 months cleaning up the data flow, how it goes into the process-wise. What is the ping? What is the alert that a sales rep gets, which is in the target account, not in a target account, or in the sub-segment that we're going after this quarter?
Where do they get their pings, Puneeth? I'm just curious.
So in emails, so alerts. So for instance, so if let's say someone downloads a white paper who's within the sub-segment we want to go after, what happens then? What is the process then from a sales point of view? Should they go after them? Probably not. You don't want to go after someone who downloads a white paper. It's going to show up and fall flat, right? So what happens then? Does it go to a nurture flow? What happens if someone takes a free trial or a demo within the target account list? What happens when they take it not within a target account list? And then what happens when you take it a sub-segment that we're going after in the quarter? So it's sort of levels of priorities. Like we didn't number them, and we're not being as sophisticated as a snowflake might be with 1.1, 1.3 and 2 and things like that. And I think I heard it somewhere, but just a basic alignment of strategy. What is the priority? Who you want to focus on? Wasn't it Bruce Lee who said the best warrior is an average man with a laser-like focus. Yeah, that's what he said, and I think that's what we're trying to do, and really sort of focus on that. This is what we've been spending the last 8 months doing: cleaning up the pipeline, making sure we can measure everything right, aligning sales and marketing, and CS obviously as it goes on through the funnel. And RevOps and sales also involved in the whole process, and product is making changes to help that.
Couple of questions: how many SDRs and how many AEs do you have to support this?
So we have, that's an ever-changing number. We had, I think it was about, and don't put me on the wall against this, but because it's such an ever-changing number, I think right now, let's say we've got, I think about 12 SDRs, 10 to 12 SDRs. And anywhere between 15 and 20 AEs.
No. Sorry. That's perfect. I mean, obviously on LinkedIn, the numbers would change, but so these SDRs are the ones that are responsible for, from a sales motion perspective, is creating activities within these target accounts?
That's right. So they are. And another big shift that we did was when you have a high inbound model, high velocity, large inbound model, most of the SDRs are focused on inbound, right? If you look at the SDR team, 80% of them are focused on outbound. That's a huge difference between going after massive companies, right? You have to go outbound. It's mostly an outbound motion. And no matter what anyone says, outbound drives inbound, right? Because you're going after people and then they say, oh, I got this email, I got this thing, whatever else. And then they probably come in inbound through a direct and they know about us, right? And so right now, the SDR team is about 80% of them are outbound. So they have a set of accounts. Each of them have a set of accounts with set of cards within them. And so they know who they're going after. And we know who they're going after as well.
Totally.
successful thing for marketing.
So now let me ask you one question, and you talk about cultural shift. How hard was it to, you have SDRs and AEs who are used to getting inbound leads, booking demos, for them to go, well, you're not going to get these inbound leads, 5,000 inbound leads coming in. You need to go after these accounts. You need to pound them and nurture them, and then book a meeting with your AE. How did that shift happen? Like, if I am a salesperson, I'll be upset. I'm like, whoa, what happened to all my meetings, all my pipeline that I was going to get relatively easily?
Yeah, that's right. And that is why I said more than commercial, cultural change and moving up market, it's tougher. It's a tougher thing to do. And it's more of a cultural change than a commercial change or business change, if you want. It's tough. Like I don't have an answer on a plate saying this is what we did and this is where we are, but we've improved. And if you look at the same time last year, if you look at Q3 of last year to Q2, and now we're getting into Q3 of this year, it's huge. And the sales leader has been great. We have an SDR manager now with rev ops, sales ops, marketing, and the exec team. Everyone's behind this. And when a whole company is behind a group of SDRs, magic happens, right? And so that's what it needs. It needs to come from the top. It needs to come from the sideways. It needs to come from everywhere. And I'm not saying we've reached nirvana now. Yeah, but I do know that we've really changed the face of how of ourselves, of the company, and how we reach out to people. We had to train them on outbound. Outbounding is so different. You've got to research the person. There's a lot of personalization involved, and there's probably more heartache than inbound, right? A direct inbound is you convert it at such a high percentage with outbound, right? And so how do you do that? And that's just something that we've been struggling with, and then improving. Marketing has been helping in providing air coverage to them. Sales have been, sales ops, training, sales enablement, and then sales.
So from the air cover perspective, marketing, Puneeth, if you had to quickly say, which channels work the best from marketing, what do you see?
Events, events is number one. There is no doubt about it. Even if I didn't do it now, without COVID, events was huge. I've done this in the past. In one of my previous companies, LivePerson, we went from an SMB to a Fortune 200 list. And the way we drove that was two things: bottom funnel content, so sales enablement, and events being the number one channel. And
by events, you mean sponsoring other events and having a booth?
Sponsoring other events is a waste of time. So not sponsoring other events, but making sure, so we put our best, so our subject matter experts, in like a panel or talking with a customer, with other industry experts. We recently had Tim Savage, who's a professor in the NYU Shack real estate curriculum, like their academy, and he's great. And we spoke to him about the state of the market and where we are currently, what we feel happened on COVID, what's beyond that, and how that works. And so
So for that example, Puneeth, would you just have that discussion with Tim Savage and do it as a webinar, or would you have that at an already industry event that's happening?
Both. And that's what I mean by events. So what I'm trying to say is not sponsoring and slapping a banner on things.
Yes,
that's what we meant. But it's about showcasing our expertise in this industry and how a technology and a solution can help customers or prospects do their job better and grow their business better. And that's what we want to do, right? You obviously have top funnel. We're starting to put acceleration events, pipeline acceleration, but you can't only focus on pipeline acceleration. We need to build demand. Half of my title is demand, and you need to, I need to look forward. I can't just think of the next 6 months. Building demand is not building leads. It's very different, as I'm sure you know. And so, it's just varying stages of the funnel. We started off with very high level thought leadership. Like I said, this example with Tim, we're talking the state of the market. And then you slowly start coming down and saying, okay, so how do you really know about that? You need data, right? Yeah. How do you get that data? You need technology to be into your systems. And how do you do that? You have companies like ourselves to be able to help with that.
Amazing. So now let's talk about quickly, few specific data points, Puneeth. You have decided, you've narrowed down on a very small segment of companies. that you're running different motions, outbound and events and content syndication and things like that. How many leads are you generating now? Like what's what's the KPI that you're looking for? Leading indicator, I guess.
A leading indicator is core. Remember I spoke about how we
Core lead. Yeah.
Yes, right. When you put out, for marketing, for instance, when you put out stuff, you can be hyper targeted, which we're not yet. So we don't have an ABM tool. We're working on that. So check up, next year. I'd love to come back and talk about how that ABM tool has helped. And but obviously, as I said, we've been focusing on alignment, on strategy, on culture, making sure we've got that set up, tested it out a little bit. We know it works, and now I can take the tools to really go full scale. We've reduced the number of leads, right? I told you we had no specific numbers here, but way above 50,000, right? Leads coming through the door. And right now it'll probably be by the end of the year less than half of that, probably way less than half of that. But the leading indicators are there in the core segments. So in the four core segments I'm talking about, and they've got to be mid-market enterprise. And so what we've done is, and I think this is classic, and this is what I think every company should do. You've got two pathways of sort of revenue generation. One, which is like inbound, they come through direct and everything around inbound, right? And so you want to optimize that as much as possible. So you want to take, you have review sites, you have like the right page search. When people search for it, you've got obviously your website, you've got all of the material up there, the right content, making sure, and when someone's interested, they find us and we get to them and then we speak to them, right? That's one path. And then the other path is the outbound, which is a bit more personalized, and how do you go after and targeting and direct mail and things like that. And so we've kind of sort of got to close to where we want to get to on the automated side of this, where we're easily distinguishing between core, non-core. We're easily distinguishing between SMB, mid-market. And how does that route into the system, our overall database? What happens to each of those four key groups of people? Sales focuses on the most important group, which is core mid-market. Everything else has to go into certain buckets. Probably nurture emails, probably straight to buy, and a ton of other things. So we've kind of, you never perfect it, but we've got to the stage where we're sort of comfortable there, and still a few things to do. But now we're really focused on the outbound motion and how do you improve that? How do you train people from a marketing perspective? What we do as well.
And in an outbound motion, are you looking at outbound? You're reaching out to these specific accounts, contacts within these accounts. Is the metric that you're tracking is how many engagement backs you're getting on those target accounts you're reaching out to, like a percentage or meetings booked, or what is it?
So you did ask about, so it's not just about the top of the funnel. It's a bit quantity. I'm like every good marketer should be. My goal is revenue. Right, especially for a startup. I don't have we're not in enterprise. We don't have a huge sales cycle yet. We'll get there. So pipeline and then revenue. So you've got, so right at the top, it's got core, and in the right, so core mid-market. So that's lead indicator of good leads coming through. And then you've got, the pipeline that we're building, which is an SQL, which is what I see every morning, every day, every evening. I'm looking at those numbers. What's the conversion? How are we driving? Which channels are working best? And then sort of like pushing them further down the funnel. One thing I was saying was, when we were heavy SMB, generally focused on one channel. Mostly one channel. It was paid search, right? I say this is how they buy software.
Absolutely.
Because software, find the owner of a property in so and so, right? This is not how a mid-market enterprise VP of CPO will not buy by Google search. So marketing as well had to have a multi-channel approach and not just focus on search, do events and LinkedIn. And you were asking earlier what the channels that are working. It's those. It's LinkedIn. It's events. Search is huge. You got to build search. Putting the right content out. We came up with a whole segment on our website called Reonomy Research. We've got a lot of data of these companies. So why not show it to people and show them how the sausage is made? Well, not sausage is made, but show them the sausage really. Really show them the data, how they can pull that into their business. And so, the right content and pushing that right content out. And these are the things that we're working on. But from a pipeline perspective, it's like, from a flow perspective, it's top of the funnel, leading indicators, core, mid-market, then pipeline, and then of course conversion to revenue, and then usage, of course, beyond. Churn is a huge indicator. Of course, it's a leading indicator. You got to wait for a year for churn. Annual contracts. We're constantly looking at churn. It's one of the most important metrics we're looking at as a business today.
To figure out which segment is the best fit, right?
That's right. And to figure out whether we're doing the right thing. Are we actually doing the right thing by doing this, or do people still churn? And then there's a bigger issue there. Thankfully, we've improved it tremendously with all of the things that we're doing, and we'll get better.
And going from SME to mid-market and enterprise obviously would help with churn, right?
That's it. Obviously that's why also, right? We were having churn problems as well. So it's not product market fit. We're great product, amazing value, but that definitely helps. But also, you still have to be able to provide value, and so
100%. No, cool. This is phenomenal, Puneeth. I feel like there is so much more we can unpack in this, but this whole idea of you breaking down and unpacking the whole culture shift, the strategy, outbound, focusing on certain accounts, tearing it down, the metrics, it's been phenomenal. I know I have found value. We are kind of focusing on the small mid-market, and we're facing some of the challenges you guys face. We are thinking of going to mid-market, not enterprise, but and we are also starting to do outbound. Previously, 80% of our leads were all inbound. 20% was from partners. Now we are thinking of, well, how can maybe we should do more outbound to reach the right accounts. So this is very, very useful and very helpful. I thank you, Puneeth.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This is great.